Zhang Tong stood on the roof, his tall body motionless like a stone tower, letting the strong night wind of early winter in northern Jiangsu blow his military coat. Darkness embraced the whole world, and the vast forest outside the base rose and fell in the dark, like countless monsters gathering. The wind blew through the treetops, making a ghostly scream, adding to the horror of the night. However, Zhang Tong didn't care about it. He just stood there quietly, waiting for an old friend he hadn't seen for decades. A flash of white light flashed in the distance, and Zhang Tong caught it instantly. In just a few breaths, a figure had arrived in front of him. It turned out to be a young Taoist priest with a white face and no beard, with his feet on a flying sword with a cold glow. The Taoist priest landed gracefully, waved his hand lightly, and the sword flew into the sword bag behind him. Zhang Tong sized up the Taoist priest and said jokingly, "You are an old man, and you are still pretending to be young. You don't understand. Pretty girls nowadays are attracted to pretty boys." The Taoist priest retorted. At this time, he saw the shoulder straps on Zhang Tong's military uniform and laughed. "Oh, good. 1 gold star. You are already a major general." Zhang Tong smiled slightly, took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, handed one to the Taoist priest, and lit it with a match. 2 red dots lit up in the dark. The Taoist priest took a deep breath, and the cigarette immediately became much shorter. He held his breath to let the smoke fully permeate his lungs, and then slowly exhaled after a while. He shook his head and smiled comfortably. "I have been thinking about this treasure for decades. How does the saying go? A cigarette after a meal is better than a living god." Both of them laughed so hard at this and shook hands vigorously. "It's been more than 40 years since we last met, right?" "Yes, there is no time in the mountains. When you close your eyes and open them again, a decade has almost passed." The Taoist sighed softly. "I miss the days when we fought side by side against the Japanese." This sentence opened up the dusty memories. The more than 10 years of war were all their glorious years. A meteor streaked across the sky, cutting the darkness before dawn in half. The two stopped chatting and looked up at the same time. The number of meteors in the sky began to increase. After a while, the sky was full of thin white lines, and the scene was particularly spectacular. "You came here for this, right?" Zhang Tong broke the silence. The Taoist stared at the meteor shower intently and replied, "This meteor shower shouldn't have happened. The star map has been messed up. When I came here, I calculated the hexagram, and the hexagram was chaotic, and it was hard to tell good or bad. I only knew that the cause and effect of this reincarnation would be fulfilled in this place of Hulu, so I came here specially to take a look. When the stars started to change, I was waiting for this meteor shower." Zhang Tong said, "It's no small matter when the stars come down to Earth. Let's wait and see." As they were talking, an extremely dazzling red meteor broke through the meteor group and appeared in their field of vision, followed by another one, and another one. 3 red meteors slowly glided in the night sky in a triangular shape. The two were shocked. 3 stars descended to the earth at the same time. No one had expected this. The Taoist priest muttered a spell, formed seals with his hands, and shouted "Qi." His eyes were filled with green air, and 2 green lights shot straight into the night sky. The Western Quaywood Wolf, the Z-Fire Monkey, and the Eastern Kong Golden Dragon. Fortunately, they are not evil stars. The Taoist priest finally saw the 3 stars descending to the earth, but he still couldn't relax. 3 stars shine in the world. Good or bad is hard to predict. The fate of countless people will change because of them. I'm worried that this peaceful world may be. We can only achieve peace on our own. Zhang Tong interrupted the Taoist priest, his words carrying an air of domineering attitude, his aura as sharp as a blade. Train troops for 1,000 days and use them for a moment. Even if it really is an evil star, it should go back the same way it came. Ha oh, Lord Man, Chang Yangzi, good evening. The two turned around at the same time and looked at the person who was speaking. An old man stood behind them. His hair and beard were all white, and his body was hunched. However, he had a childlike innocent smile on his face, and his eyes behind his glasses flashed with wisdom. Zhang Tong withdrew his momentum, bowed slightly to the old man, and said solemnly, "Sure enough, my blinding method is ineffective against Mr. Li." The Taoist priest also resumed his relaxed demeanor. He bowed to the old man and greeted him with a smile. 40 years have passed, and Uncle Li is still as handsome as ever. His charm is really not diminished at all. The little Taoist priest is still so naughty. The old man did not take it as an offense. After greeting the two of them with a smile, he also began to stare at the 3 big stars. The meteor shower gradually stopped, leaving only a few scattered stardust in the sky. One of the big stars flew to the east and landed behind the horizon first, while the other 2 big stars turned to the west and disappeared from the sight of the 3 people one after another. I wonder what the old man has to say about this meteor shower. Zhang Tong asked. The old man still laughed and said, "I don't understand the myths and legends of you Chinese people, but I have a hunch that these 3 stars will bring unusual surprises to the world." Seeing that the two wanted to see something, he quickly stopped them and said, "Enough. I am an observer, not a prophet. Why do you keep asking me?" After saying that, he waved his hand and went downstairs and left. Zhang Tong and the Taoist priest looked at each other, and both saw a light of relief in each other's eyes. They knew this mysterious old man decades ago, but they couldn't tell what kind of existence this old man Li was. He could appear anywhere, just to witness the changes in the world. He came and went without a trace, and all the rules and laws of the world were invalid to him. Okay, since old Li has said so, why should I worry? The Taoist said to Zhang Tong, "Besides, you, Lord Man, are guarding this country, so why should I waste my energy?" Zhang Tong restrained his smile, walked to the fence, looked down at the military base under his feet, and said lightly, "Don't mention the name Lord Man anymore in the future." The Taoist priest still looked at Zhang Tong, his eyes reflecting the starry sky, equally dazzling. Zhang Tong snorted and lit a cigarette. In recent years, strange phenomena have continued to appear in various places. This time, the 3 stars descended to the earth at the same time during the chaos in the star realm, and they must have come to respond to the disaster. You may not know that in the past 100 years, the number of people with supernatural powers in the world has been growing exponentially every year. So what you said just now is not entirely correct. This is not a disaster for our country, but a world-destroying disaster that may affect the whole world and even the entire universe. I once promised him that I would stand guard for him for 100 years. Before that, there was only the Iron General Zhang Tong in the world, but no Lord Man. The Taoist chuckled, and then said with a playful smile, "Interesting. There are actually people who can subdue the unruly son of the heavenly wolf. Hey, I say, we have such a good relationship. Can you also help me guard the cave? Tourists now really dare to go anywhere." "Don't talk nonsense. Who can enter your secret realm?" The two laughed and cursed for a while. When they saw that the strange phenomenon in the sky had disappeared, the Taoist said goodbye to Zhang Tong. He came with excitement and left with excitement. 1 man and 1 sword soared into the night sky and disappeared in an instant. Zhang Tong smiled slightly, stamped out his cigarette butt, and turned to leave. Behind him, the light on the horizon became brighter and brighter. A red sun rose up, instantly dyeing the vast land with exceptional brightness. 27 years later, New Year's Eve was the busiest day of the year. No matter how rich or poor a family was, they would hang lanterns and celebrate the spring festival together. Everyone had a smile on their face, congratulating each other. Children were playing and laughing on the streets, and the sound of firecrackers could be heard from afar. When it was time for the New Year's Eve dinner, the adults took the children home, closed the door, and the whole family enjoyed their own warm moments. It gradually became quiet outside, but the festive atmosphere became stronger. He just stood in front of the window, looking at the night view outside. The fireworks rising in the distance reflected his eyes red, but could not illuminate his figure hidden in the dark room. No festival belonged to him, but he had been alone for many years and had long been accustomed to it. Every day was the same for him, going to work, getting off work, practice, sleep. After watching the night scene for a while, he closed the curtains, took off his clothes, and revealed his cheetah-like body. If someone saw him, they would be surprised that this skinny young man had a well-proportioned and strong body. He crossed his legs, with his soles facing up, his arms hanging naturally, and silently recited the inner strength method in his heart. After a while, his consciousness slowly sank, and his 5 senses gradually disappeared. At this time, there was only him in the whole void, without heaven or earth, without east or west, without me or others. The Dantian area below his navel began to heat up. He felt the familiar heat gradually surge up, and he used his mind to control it to move around his limbs and bones. Wherever it passed, it felt as comfortable as being scalded by hot water, and the acupoints and pores were unobstructed. Before long, his whole body was steaming with heat. There was a strange tattoo on his back, which looked like a dragon or a tiger, simple and mysterious. At this time, the golden light was at its peak, and a traceable energy gushed out from it, flowing slowly around the young man, making him look like a golden statue. Although he was the only one in the room, it seemed that there were countless monks chanting in a low voice, and the sound of Sanskrit was lingering, which was indescribably solemn. 4 hours passed quickly. The young man shouted, and the energy he released exploded into golden dots all over the room, and then was sucked back into his body through the tattoo like a rainbow piercing the sun. The moment he opened his eyes, 2 rays of light shot out, which were breathtaking. He blinked twice, and the light disappeared. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was only a few minutes before midnight. Every time he finished practicing, his body was very dirty. He had to take a shower and go to bed. He wanted to go to pay tribute to his deceased grandparents early tomorrow morning. Thinking of this, he got out of bed and went to the bathroom. At this moment, a loud boom sounded from outside the window, followed by roars one after another, and the whole city was submerged in the sea of fireworks. Through the curtains, one could see the gorgeous flames outside. 205 has arrived. For him, it was just a so-called holiday that had passed, and the lonely days would continue. Little did he know that his life would change drastically in that year. Today is May 28, 2015. I am now in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. Half a month has passed since the Ultron sabotage incident. The Maple Bridge was severely damaged, and the Line 2 subway derailed, causing serious damage to buildings along the road. Many roads in Gangnam district and the surrounding main urban areas were damaged and cracked, and the number of casualties exceeded 1,000. We can see that the staff of the Stark Foundation under the American Stark Industries Group are conducting on-site search and rescue, and the rescue team sent by our country is also participating in this rescue work. This is the location of the former Eastern European sovereign state of Sokovia. Now there is only a large pit over 160 meters deep. About 100,000 people died in this disaster. The geological features of the surrounding countries have also been changed to varying degrees. We don't know whether this will lead to natural disasters in the future. We will continue to report on the disaster situation in Sokovia for you in the next few days. Although the robot named Ultron has been destroyed, the general public still expressed concerns about artificial intelligence and robots. Today, we invited Professor Zhang Jiuzhong, a famous military expert, to talk with everyone about the application of AI robot technology in future wars. This is the CCTV News channel. Russia, Lithuania, and other Eastern European countries have successively issued strong condemnations, believing that the United States has an unshakable responsibility for the Sokovia incident. The two permanent members of the United Nations, the United States and Russia, broke out in a fierce conflict at the Supreme Security Council. How will this dispute develop? Our reporters will continue to follow up and bring you the latest news. Liu Zong felt very irritated. The media was talking about Sokovia, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers, and Ultron all the time. His ears were calloused. For him, who always considered himself a commoner, the fight between the Americans and the Russians, or the destruction of a city by the superheroes, was not as important as the bowl of beef ramen on the table. He didn't want to hear this, so he quickly finished his noodles, paid the bill and left. Qiantan City at the end of May had already shown the splendor of one of China's 4 major furnaces during the day, but it was still a bit cold at night. The subway had already stopped running, and Liu Zong waited on the side of the road for a while. When he didn't see a taxi, he decided to walk a little further and go to the main intersection to have a look. In fact, since the existence of X-Men became known to the public 15 years ago, the fact that there are people with superpowers in the world has been revealed. However, the topic of mutants is too sensitive. Most countries in the world have prejudices against this group of people and even regard them as dangerous. People are still accustomed to seeing the Avengers as a symbol of superheroes. After all, whether it is Playboy Tony Stark, Steve Rogers who symbolizes the American spirit, or Thor who should be a mythical figure, they are all well-known big names, and any one of them can become the center of the topic. As the world's second-largest economy with such a vast territory, China naturally has its own local superpowers. However, the nature of the country also determines that our country's superpowers cannot do whatever they want like the United States. The country has a complete registration system, that is, the country must know your existence and ability characteristics. As long as you don't make trouble or use your special abilities to disrupt social order, the country will not interfere with your life. If you want to use your abilities to do things for the country, then you are warmly welcome. The Superpower Management Department, the National Security Bureau, will provide corresponding positions based on your ability characteristics, with generous treatment, and the safety of your family will also be protected to a certain extent. Anyway, in general, superpower chaos in China is very rare, and there are very few people with special abilities exposed to the masses. In recent years, with the Avengers making such a fuss, the world has changed a lot. Just the appearance of the Chitauri and Asgardians has made human beings' understanding of the outside world jump from "are there aliens in the world?" to "wow, aliens are so fierce." This span is so big, and the world view has been refreshed so thoroughly, just like being hit by a stick, making most countries tremble and tighten their anus, and then start an arms race desperately. Since Tony Stark publicly admitted that he was Iron Man and formed the Avengers in 2005, Stark Industries, as the actual sponsor of the Avengers, has always been able to get the latest technology at the first time. So although Stark Industries has indeed given up its old business of weapons manufacturing, its industrial technology in other fields is still far beyond the level of the Earth. In recent years, it has become a super company that spans 7 continents and has strategic cooperation with more than 30 countries around the world. The aerospace industry, robotics technology, and other aspects of various countries have made great progress under the technical sponsorship of Stark Industries. Of course, in terms of comprehensive national strength, the gap between the United States and other countries in the world is getting bigger and bigger. Who can blame the United States for being the favorite place for these big villains to patronize? They can always get first-hand information. The technology learned by other countries has been studied by the United States. This North American power, which has been constantly renovated and rebuilt due to the destruction of superhuman fighting in recent decades, now has a position as the world hegemon that no one can shake. The impact of advanced technology on the world can be seen in the city of Chetan. Unmanned supermarkets, restaurants, and gas stations that are all served by robots are gradually increasing. The application of new building materials has increased the height of floors year by year, and skyscrapers are no longer uncommon. As a new metropolis in China and the capital of Xinjiang province, one of the richest provinces on the southeast coast of China, Shenzhen City will host world-renowned events such as the World Summit and the Asian Games in the next few years, and has a good chance of becoming one of the first-tier cities in Asia. However, there are always shadows under the brilliant lights. The old residential buildings and shanty towns that have not yet been demolished are still places where filth and dirt are hidden. There is a large area of abandoned old houses near the office building where Lu Song works. At this time, it is dark and without any lights, like a lurking beast waiting for its prey. Lu Song is a young man with a strong sense of justice. He often speaks up for some injustices. However, in today's society, it is no longer popular to help the injustice, so he has been doing very ordinary so far. Since his parents disappeared and his grandparents passed away, he has been living alone. A few years ago, the old house was demolished. As the only living person in the family, he was allocated an apartment and some cash. With the current monthly salary of several thousand yuan, he can live a decent life. When drinking, colleagues and friends always joke that with your personality, you should be struck by lightning, and then become a superhero to protect all mankind. But Lu Zhong doesn't think so. He has his own point of view. Superheroes are not good at all. Look at the bad guys in the world, they all want to defeat you and become famous, just like a target. Only a domineering young man like Tony Stark would publicize himself as Iron Man for the sake of fame. Look at how he is being targeted now. Everyone wants to blow up your building and steal your technology. If you can hide your identity and protect yourself properly without affecting the fight against criminals, how perfect it is. At this time, his friends laughed at him, saying, "How dare you think that? You should have superpowers first." Lu Zong could only smile without saying anything, and shouted down. To pass over the topic. People are like this, wanting to be famous, longing for the eyes of beautiful women, and living a life that everyone admires. But can you bear the pressure and risks that fame brings to you? This no man's land was once a paradise for a group of robbers. They robbed passers-by who were alone or took shortcuts, and then fled in small groups. The police blocked the way for a month but failed to catch them. One day, they received a mysterious alarm and arrived here to find that the group had their legs broken and thrown on the ground, because they blocked Lu Yan's way that day. Just as Lu Zhong turned around to leave, he clearly heard a roar coming from the dark and narrow alley in the residential area, which scared him. Where did the wild beast come from? Could it be that some irresponsible person abandoned the Tibetan Mastiff in there? Lu Zong thought about it and decided to go in and take a look. Lu Zong felt that he still needed to take a look, so he walked deeper into the alley. If I were you, I would never go near there. Lu Zong stopped abruptly because he heard a man's voice speaking in his head. Who? Lu Zong replied vigilantly. I'm Charles Xavier, the voice said again. You can also call me Professor Exa. The name sounded so familiar, Lu Zong tried hard to recall it. There was silence for about 3 seconds. Perhaps he didn't expect that someone wouldn't recognize him. The other party was a little embarrassed. The voice coughed lightly and then said, I'm here on behalf of the X-Men. Oh, Lu Zong remembered who it was. No wonder it sounded so familiar. It turned out to be the dean of the Mutant Academy and the leader of the X-Men. He was about to express his admiration for the celebrity when he heard the voice shouting, "Leave quickly." Then he heard a dull explosion from deep in the alley, and the ground shook. "Forget it. It's not a good place to stay for long," Lu Xun thought. Who knows what kind of monsters are there? The X-Men are here. There should be nothing for me to do, right? After thinking about it, he turned around and ran, asking Professor X, "How did you find me?" The professor said, "When I was searching for saber-toothed tigers, I found you nearby. Young man, you are very interesting. Maybe we will have the opportunity to cooperate in the future." So the mutant stowaway is Sabertooth. Damn, why is there another person's voice in my head? Lu Xun probably has schizophrenia from working too much overtime. You are the telepath from China, right? Professor Xavier, nice to meet you. I am Zhou Kai from the Qiantan City National Security Bureau. These two people are still chatting in my mind. Have you paid the venue fee? How can you be so casual? Lu Xun was so angry that he was about to laugh. He didn't tell me what happened and asked me to run. Where should I run? I don't know if the two heard his thoughts and changed the channel to chat privately. Anyway, no matter how Lu Xun asked, he couldn't get any answer. Just when he was about to stop, a black shadow rushed out from the nearby alley and pounced on Lu Xun quickly, scaring him to run away. "Stop!" The man behind him shouted, and his speed increased a bit. The two of them ran less than 500 meters, and the man was already very close to Lu Xun. Damn, the mutants are so powerful. Lu Xun shouted in his heart, but he didn't dare to stop. He tried his best to maintain his maximum speed, hoping that when he ran to a road with lights and pedestrians, the other party would retreat. The two chased and fled for a few hundred meters. A street lamp was just in front of them. Lu Xun felt the collar of his shirt tightened. He was grabbed by someone. He was not a man who would surrender. In a hurry, he turned around and punched. He felt a burning sensation on his back. The strength of his arm suddenly increased. The speed of his punch seemed to tear the air. The person chasing him was obviously also a martial arts expert. He saw Lu Xun's punch clearly at a glance and stretched out his elbow to block it. However, he did not expect that this swift punch was surprisingly powerful. He could not block it with his strength. He stepped back 3 steps. With a sizzle, the back of Lu Xun's shirt was torn off, and the two of them faced each other in the dim light from afar. If someone was behind Lu Xun at this time, they would see the tattoo on his back glowing red, which was very strange. Lu Xun bowed slightly, ready to go. Since he couldn't run away, he would fight hidden. Somehow, he felt full of strength, and his whole body was as high-spirited as a burning flame. The man behind him was obviously startled when he saw Lu Xun looking back, but he stopped and walked over slowly. Only then did Lu Xun see clearly that the man was wearing a strange uniform, like a military uniform. He had black hair and yellow skin, which was obviously the characteristics of a Chinese. "One of us." Lu Xun was immediately angry. "I said, you Chinese, what English do you speak? You made me run for so long, you have to compensate me for my clothes." The visitor was also embarrassed. "I thought you were an accomplice of the foreign stowaway. I don't know what happened this night." Lu Xun cursed and tore off his torn clothes, ready to grab the body's coat. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his right arm. He looked down and saw that his whole arm was swollen and painful, and the skin was cracked and a faint red light was revealed. He hadn't figured out what was going on yet, and was about to scream when the pain intensified again, and the dizziness instantly overwhelmed his consciousness. It was the same dream again. It was the same deserted ancient town again, with bluestone-paved streets and wooden old buildings on both sides. All the main roads in the town converged under the giant tower in the center of the town. Lu Xun had never heard of a tower that could be built so tall in reality. This same dream has been repeated since childhood, and it has never stopped over the years. But the ancient town is a little different today. The unchanging night sky is now covered with leaden clouds, and lightning can be seen faintly in the distance. Liu Song would wake up from his dream every time he walked towards the giant tower, so this time he habitually walked towards the center of the town. But today's situation is obviously different from the past. Suddenly, a thunderous roar poked a hole in the thick clouds. Liu Song was shocked and lost his mind. He sat down on the ground, and then he saw a scene beyond his imagination. A giant red dragon emerged from the clouds, carrying a mighty aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth, and landed on the tower. The entire tower instantly caught fire. The giant dragon looked down at Liu Song. The two lines of sight that were emitting divine light, the might of a top-level creature, were as real as substance, and it made it difficult for Liu Song to breathe. The giant dragon's mouth opened and closed, uttering a few syllables, as if it was saying something, but Liu Song couldn't hear it at that moment. The huge dragon raised its neck, opened a pair of huge wings from its back, flapped them vigorously, and flew up again. If Liu Song had seen this scene in a movie theater, he would definitely complain about the setting of Chinese dragons having wings, but when he experienced it in person, he was completely stunned. The storm raised by the dragon's wings was like a knife. He felt that it was more important than anything else to clamp his thighs together to prevent himself from peeing. At this time, the whole world was getting brighter and brighter. Liu Song closed his eyes tightly, but he could still feel a burning pain in his retina. He finally woke up from his dream. The first thing that caught his eye was a flashlight shining directly into his eyes. Damn, why is it so bright? Liu Song wailed and covered his eyes, and heard a few girls' cries. Liu Song only remembered that he fainted from the pain, and he didn't know what happened afterwards. He opened his eyes and saw himself lying on a hospital bed, with a middle-aged doctor in a white coat sitting on a chair next to him, and a group of young nurses standing around. It looked like he was in the hospital. The doctor put away the flashlight, taught the nurses some clinical knowledge on how to observe the patient's pupil contraction in Mandarin with a strong Hunan accent, and then let them all go. Now only Liu Song and the doctor were left in the ward. The middle-aged doctor was a little bald, with a smooth forehead and shoulder-length hair on the back. His narrow eyes were slanted upwards, and there were two red whiskers on his lips. His facial features looked quite funny. Liu Song covered his head and recalled for a while, but he couldn't remember anything, so he asked, "Where am I? Are you a doctor?" The doctor replied, "This is the No.1 hospital in the city. I am a doctor here." Then he pointed to the name tag on his chest. "Chief Physician Fu Shenzhou. Wow, he is an expert. What's wrong with me? My arm?" Liu Song raised his right arm. The skin was not cracked, everything was intact, as if the red light and the sting pain did not exist at all. "You are fine. Everything is normal." The doctor paused and said, "It is beyond normal." Liu Song turned over and got out of bed, and replied while putting on his shoes, "Ha ha, uncle, you are so funny. Goodbye," and walked towards the door of the ward. The doctor laughed behind him and said, "Don't be in a hurry to leave." Seeing that Liu Song tried to pull the door several times but failed, he added, "Don't you want to know why you fainted?" Liu Zhen's hand stopped on the door handle. He turned back slowly. The doctor's funny face still had a warm smile. "Don't get me wrong, young man, I have no ill will towards you." The doctor stretched out two fingers, and a blood-red energy flowed out from between his fingers. A pattern slowly emerged in the air of the ward, like a tiger head, with mysterious patterns, as if it came from an ancient totem tens of millions of years ago. Liu Song recognized it. It was the tattoo on his back. At this moment, he was calm enough. This doctor was not an ordinary person, but he felt that he had no ill will towards him. Seeing that Liu Zong was still leaning against the door with full alert, as if he was ready to break in at any time if they didn't agree, the doctor was a little amused and continued, "The tattoo on your back is Bian, one of the 9 dragon sons. This kind of complex ancient engraving cannot be copied by even the greatest painter, let alone a tattoo artist." Liu Zong didn't tell anyone about the tattoo on his back. It was the deepest secret in his heart. Unexpectedly, a doctor, who he had never met before, could tell the truth in one sentence. What kind of monster this pattern is, even he himself didn't know. The doctor knew what Liu Zong was thinking. He just smiled and said, "After you were sent here last night, all your personal information will be here in an hour." He ignored Liu Zhang's shocked look and continued, "You have been physically outstanding since you were a child. Your strength is much greater than that of normal people, and you like to fight for justice. This is all because of this Bian dragon pattern." It was recorded in the ancient scrolls that 1,300 years ago, the extra-tantric sect had a profound martial art. With the deepening of practice, one could eventually reach the power of 10 dragons and 10 elephants. However, with the continuous wars, the fragments of the internal qigong that recorded the power of dragons were lost. There is a characteristic of practitioners who have learned the power of dragons. Dragon tattoos will appear on their bodies. As the practice deepens, 9 dragon tattoos will appear one after another. Your ancestors must have a very complicated origin. The doctor carefully appreciated the pattern, then waved his hand to dispel it. As the saying goes, a dragon gives birth to 9 sons, each with his own preferences. The 7th son, Bian, likes litigation and can distinguish right from wrong. Its characteristics have influenced your personality. Although you have been stronger than your peers since childhood, it was not until last night that you successfully used its ability for the first time. The power of Bian strengthened your right limb for punching, but you are now 27 years old and your body has long been developed. Reshaping the meridians and tendons is equivalent to breaking all the bones and flesh, so you will feel severe pain. Now your right arm has reached an incredible level of bone density, muscle strength, and skin toughness. You will gradually experience it. It turns out that the punch I threw last night accidentally activated my ability. No wonder the power was so strong that it hurt my hand." Liu Zong listened to the doctor's explanation quietly, and thought carefully about what happened last night, and had a general understanding. "Who are you? Doctors don't know magic, let alone these things." The doctor did not answer Liu Zhang's question, but only said, "Anyway, once what happened last night happened, you will have to go to the National Security Bureau to file a report, and sooner or later you will know who I am." At this point, he shouted loudly to the outside of the door, shouting, "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, a soldier opened the door and saluted the doctor. Judging from the outline, it should be the person who chased him last night. The doctor waved his hand casually and said to him, "Liu Zong is fine. You take him to see Director Zhou." He turned back and introduced to Liu Zong, "This is Wolf Warrior Ding Liu." On the way to the National Security Bureau, Liu Zong and Ding Liu introduced themselves to each other and officially met. Ding Liu is indeed a soldier. Their unit was temporarily stationed in Qiantan City because of the summit. As for the unit number, he could not reveal it, only saying that they were called the Flying Dragon Brigade. Liu Zong didn't know much about it, but it was very powerful anyway. The Chinese army is undisputedly the first in the world's military rankings, which is why foreign mercenaries regard the Chinese mainland as a forbidden area and are reluctant to set foot in it. If the border guards discover the invaders, they will never return. Many mercenaries with superpowers died on the border of China. China's special forces are the top in the army, and the selection is very strict. Everyone who is qualified to be selected is a person with special skills. Speaking of Ding Liu, he is really amazing. He is very young, a few months younger than Lu Song, but he has already reached the rank of lieutenant colonel. In the military circle, there is only one possibility for fast promotion, except for being a family member with connections outstanding meritorious service, and Ding Lu is obviously the latter. Lu Song gave Ding Lu a thumbs up. He admired soldiers the most in his life. They guarded the borders, defended the country, escorted overseas, and carried out disaster relief. They were indispensable everywhere. Maintaining the peace and stability of a country has never relied on superhero organizations. It can only be the army. The two were chatting when they arrived at the National Security Bureau. Lu Song had been in Hangzhou for more than 20 years and often passed by here, but he had never been in. In his opinion, as an outsider, the National Security Bureau, with such an awesome name, was definitely a powerful organization at the hidden boss level. In fact, the security here was indeed strict. The gate guards with live ammunition conducted a detailed security check on the two. After carefully checking Ding Lu's documents and calling to confirm, they let the two go. In just a few minutes from the gate to the office building, Lu Song discovered several hidden warning points. He had never had such a keen perception before. Perhaps this was also the benefit brought by the awakening of the Bion pattern, he thought. They walked into the lobby of the National Security Bureau office building. It was very spacious, about 10 meters high, and there was no one around. The footsteps of the two echoed in the hall, and even the echo seemed particularly serious. Lu Song withdrew his perception and looked up to see a huge shield-shaped badge hanging on the wall opposite the gate. The shield was engraved with the party emblem, Tiananmen Gate, and the Great Wall from top to bottom, with wheat ears on both sides. A sword was inserted into the shield from the bottom, with the tip of the sword facing up, and the entire badge was wrapped in a blue earth pattern. This should be the logo of the National Security Bureau. Lu Song stared at the badge in a daze, his eyes reflecting the deep blue, and he suddenly felt ashamed of himself. He felt as if he was enveloped by a majestic and righteous spirit, as if he had become a small boat in the raging sea. In front of him, huge waves as big as mountains rushed towards him one after another. He struggled to stand firm and not fall, but he could be swallowed up by this momentum at any time. Just when he was at a loss, someone patted his shoulder, and all the pressure disappeared like the tide, and he came back to his senses immediately. "Are you okay?" Ding Lu looked at him strangely, and Lu Song shook his head without saying anything. When he looked up again, the badge was still the badge, neutral and peaceful, but without the intimidating power just now. A badge hanging on the wall could make him lose his mind. What kind of government agency is this? Lu Song felt nervous. He didn't know what important person was waiting for him. Lu Song followed Ding Lu into the elevator. The operation of the elevator was very strange. People inside could not feel whether it was going up or down. When the elevator door opened, there was only a long corridor in front of him. The two walked along the corridor, with only cleanly painted walls on both sides. At the end of the corridor was a single wooden door with the nameplate Special Group Office written on it. There was only one office on the entire floor, and the door was facing the corridor. Who came up with such a weird design? Lu Song couldn't help complaining in his heart, and the anxiety and tension he had just felt when he came to the National Security Bureau was reduced a lot. The two came to the outside of the office. Ding Lu knocked on the door, and after getting a response, he pushed the door open. The office was not as luxurious as expected. The furnishings were quite simple. Behind the desk sat a middle-aged man in his 50s with short gray hair, a thin body, wearing frameless glasses and smiling with narrowed eyes. Lu Song felt that he was not a government official, but a middle school teacher. When he saw the two people pushing the door in, he smiled and stood up to greet them. On the way here, Liu Song had already learned from Ding Lu about the origin of the Special Group Office. The full name of this Special Group Office is Special Population Management Office. It is an administrative agency under the Ministry of State Security, responsible for all matters related to contact with superpowers, including statistics, coordination, control or arrest, etc. The person in front of him is Director Zhou Kai, the head of the Special Group Office of the Hangzhou National Security Bureau. The three of them sat down. Director Zhou was an old hand who had worked in the system for decades. He spoke in a gentle voice, and people were very fond of him the first time they met him. Xiao Lu, we invited you here today mainly because you are a new person with special abilities that we have discovered. Therefore, according to relevant regulations, we need to register your personal information, Director Zhou said to Liu Song with a smile. This is also for the convenience of future contact. I hope you don't mind. Of course, the National Security Bureau will keep your file properly, and your personal information will never be obtained by outsiders. Please rest assured about this. Personal information is everywhere on the internet now. Liu Song didn't forget to say it, but let me make it clear that I don't have any superpowers. I just learned some Qigong. Director Zhou smiled and said, it seems that you are also a traditional martial arts inheritor. May I ask who your master is? I don't know. My grandfather taught me Qigong, but he didn't tell me what it is called. Dr. Fu Shenzhou in the hospital knows more than I do. You might as well go ask him. Liu Song glanced at the director of the Special Group Office unhappily. You can read minds, don't you know this? He was still very upset about Professor X and Director Zhou invading his brain. These psychics are all peeping toms. They just run into other people's brains without the owner's consent, and stay with you. So what privacy do you have? Although Liu Song had no objection to the state setting up an agency to regulate and manage superpowers, he was still very concerned about personal privacy. He didn't want his secrets to be known by too many people. However, it is not advisable to hit a smiling person. Seeing Director Zhou's kind and smiling face, he really couldn't say anything harsh. Director Zhou laughed and said, to be honest, I am a mutant with enhanced mental power. My ability is to emit brain waves to track or investigate a creature that I have marked mentally. But I am not good at telepathy or mind control. He pointed at Ding Lu and continued, last night, I was paying attention to the actions of the werewolf, but I found your traces nearby. I borrowed Professor Xavier's mental power channel to talk to you too. This reminder reminded Liu Song of what happened last night and asked, what happened there last night? I heard an explosion, and Professor X told me to run, so I was chased by Ding Lu all the way. Because there was indeed an accomplice nearby at the time, a young woman who could create explosives out of thin air. She used the explosion to cover Sabertooth's escape. I think there is a high suspicion that they are from the Brotherhood of Mutants. Ding Lu answered, if you hadn't left first, the energy of the explosion might have hurt you. Liu Song wondered, who is Sabertooth? Is the Brotherhood of Mutants a mutant organization? Why are they coming to China? Director Zhou operated the computer on the desk for a few times, and then the projection screen on the wall of the office lit up. The video showed a group of people fighting, let's call them humans. Are you sure this is not a computer special effect? Liu Song said in amazement, pointing to a black beauty flying in the air in the picture. They are all flying in the sky and hiding in the ground. This is too unscientific. In the picture, the black beauty pointed her hands into the air, and a thick bolt of lightning struck her opponent. The big man fighting with her was very skilled. He jumped up to the height of two people, using the car park on the roadside as a cover to block the attack that was originally sure to hit him. Then he used his arms to grab the car and threw it at the woman. Director Zhou explained, this man is a saber-toothed tiger, a very dangerous mutant. It turned out that Ding Lu was fighting such a powerful monster. He is really amazing. He is worthy of being a super special forces soldier, Lu Zong thought, and his eyes did not leave the screen for half a second. The Black Beauty was obviously not good at close combat. When she saw a whole car flying towards her, she had no time to react. Fortunately, a man jumped out from behind her. Lu Zong saw that he seemed to have blades in his hands, and he easily cut the car into pieces, so the beauty survived. More than a dozen weirdos with different superpowers appeared one after another. The two groups fought fiercely. Lasers and flames flew everywhere, and the good neighborhood soon became a ruin. Lu Zong was so shocked that he couldn't speak. This battle opened his eyes. He never took these superpowers seriously. He was really sitting in a well and looking at the world. Director Zhou continued, these superpowered people belong to the two major mutant organizations in the United States, the X-Men and the Brotherhood. Under the leadership of Professor Xavier, the X-Men's actions are relatively more standardized, while most of the Brotherhood's members are dangerous elements who do things without considering the consequences. For the sake of safety, we have conducted as in-depth investigations as possible on their members. So when a suspected Brotherhood member Sabretooth appeared in Hangzhou, it immediately attracted our attention. Last night was our attempt to test him, but unfortunately, he chose to attack directly. He stood up, holding a teacup and pacing in the office. He said in a deep voice, we got the news before that the Brotherhood might take action against the Qiantang International Summit. After talking with Professor Xavier yesterday, it seems that this is true. Lu Zong jumped up in shock when he heard this. Fuck. What did you say? As one of the tourist landmarks of Qiantang City, West Lake Cultural Plaza has a main building of nearly 100 floors and a huge spherical building global center. The vast Central Park is a gathering place for wandering musicians and street dance enthusiasts, attracting a large number of Chinese and foreign tourists every day. On weekends in spring, the square is even more crowded with tourists. But Lu Zong didn't come here for fun today. He looked at the ticket to the Zhejiang Science and Technology Museum in his hand, and recalled the last conversation in the special group office in his mind. Recruiting talents from all walks of life to contribute to society is the obligation and responsibility of the special group office. We are very grateful that you can take the initiative to apply to join. Director Zhou pursed his lips tightly. His expression was extremely serious, but the National Security Bureau will be fully responsible for handling this matter. I only have one request to you, that is, to keep it strictly confidential. The situation is very serious now. As long as we make any mistakes in handling this matter, whether it is a threat to the personal safety of politicians from various countries or the cancellation of the international summit, Qiantang City and even the entire country will suffer immeasurable losses. Then, can we ask the X-Men for help or support or something? No, foreign superpowers are not allowed to enter Chinese territory without a pass. Otherwise it will be considered an illegal invasion. Ding Lu explained. As a member of the army, he strongly supported this rule. Lu Zong was dissatisfied and said, then issue a pass. The evil forces are already preparing to invade illegally, and we have to abide by this rigid rule and keep the reinforcements out. The X-Men were able to inform us of the Brotherhood's invasion. This was a great favor and showed their goodwill. But you are not in the system, so you can't imagine how serious the consequences would be if people with superpowers wanted to harm society. Director Zhou's expression became more and more stern, and the temperament of a middle school teacher had long disappeared. Lu Zong felt that the murderous intent in his eyes was about to overflow. The mutant organization is not like SHIELD. They have been aloof from the world for too long, and the real government has very limited control over them. You have seen the battle record just now. The mutants entered the country en masse, which is a great security risk. Let's say something heartbreaking. only interests are eternal in this world. How can you be sure that the reinforcements coming to help are definitely reinforcements? Liu Song admitted that he had thought too simply. Director Zhou had a point. Superpowers out of control would be a disaster for any region. The Special Group Office specializes in managing superpowers, so he can't be too cautious. Since the National Security Bureau has already made arrangements, it doesn't matter if he has nothing to do with it. Anyway, he didn't want to expose himself. So after experiencing this incident, Liu Song returned to his original life. He continued to go to get off work, continued to squeeze into the subway, and continued to live alone. But there were some changes, such as increasing the daily practice time, and he began to pay more attention to people like superpowers. It is not difficult to get information about this aspect. There are a large number of superhero fans in the world, and there are many posts discussing superpowers on the internet. Now Liu Song spends his free time in various forums and bulletin boards, and has indeed learned a lot about SHIELD and mutants, and has a clear concept in his mind. But the more he investigates and understands, the clearer a question becomes: why are people discussing foreign superheroes? Where are our Chinese superpowers? Are they hidden in the crowd, or are there so few of our local superpowers? On that day at the Special Group Office, Liu Song heard Zhou Kai talk about many things, but he felt that he only said half of what he said, and something was hidden. He felt that this secret was related to his doubts. By chance, he saw the news that the Science and Technology Museum, where the West Lake Cultural Square is located, has collected some precious historical materials on supernatural events. He decided to go and see. Maybe he could find some clues from it. Liu Song was about to go to the main building when he heard cheers coming from nearby. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw a large group of people gathered together. He squeezed in to watch the excitement. It turned out that a girl was performing. The girl had short hair, sunglasses on her head, hot pants, jacket and tank top. She was dressed very young and fashionable. Although her face was not particularly outstanding, she looked very energetic, like a happy elf. She blew out colorful glowing balls from a thin copper tube. I don't know what these balls are made of, but they can float in the air and fly up and down according to the girl's commands. It's quite magical. The girl threw 5 balls of different sizes into the sky at the same time, and then did a professional level backflip. Her body turned like a wheel, and when the balls fell, she used various parts of her body to push them up into the air again. Her 2 long legs almost dazzled Liu Zhen's eyes. Then the girl screamed, supported herself with one hand, and stood upside down in the air, holding a ball with her hand, head, and feet, causing the audience to exclaim. But when the last ball fell, the girl's left foot slipped, and the ball that should have stopped steadily actually deviated and flew straight to Liu Zhen's face. It was too late for the girl to save it. She pointed with a copper pipe, and the ball immediately exploded into a ball of dazzling shredded paper flowers, which scattered all over Liu Song. The audience was stunned for a moment, and they all applauded and cheered, cheering for this drama. The girl rushed forward and helped Liu Song brush off the paper scraps on his body, apologizing sorry repeatedly. Liu Song decided not to argue with her because of her good attitude and the fact that she was a little beauty. The girl bowed several times to the audience around her, winked at Liu Song, and laughed embarrassedly. The crowd was all disappointed, speculating whether this was an acrobat or a magician, and slowly dispersed. What is going on? It's so confusing. Liu Song muttered, walked into the main building of the square, and reached into his pocket to get his ticket, but he was struck by lightning and froze on the spot. Shit, where's my wallet? Liu Song immediately realized what was going on, turned around and chased in the direction the girl left, but there was no trace of her. He ran along the Grand Canal Park until he reached under the one-way road bridge, and in front of him was a road that led in all directions. He didn't know where to go if he wanted to chase her. Damn it, the money is not much, and it will be troublesome if the ID is lost. Lu Song cursed in his heart. This thief is really blind. I am obviously a loser. Where did the money come from for you to steal? There are so many people present. I am the last one who should be fooled. Just when Lu Song was at a loss, he heard someone puff laugh. The sound was as clear as a silver bell. He hurriedly looked around, but didn't see a single figure. Hey, idiot, look up there. Lu Song looked up and saw a black shadow flying towards him, not very fast. He reached out to catch it and saw that it was his bank card. The bridge was 10 meters above the ground. The girl was sitting on the edge of the bridge with her legs hanging in the air, swaying back and forth, looking very cute. But what she did was not cute at all. She took out the ID card from Lu Zhen's wallet, looked at it over and over again, and said with a smile, "So your name is Lu Song. It looks like a very ordinary name." By now, even a fool should know that the girl's ultimate goal is definitely not to steal. So Lu Song accompanied her in beating around the bush. "What's your name? I'm broke as a dog, and you still stole my wallet. Are you interested in me?" Hearing Lu Zhen's words, the girl suddenly became interested and said, "I am interested in you." Seeing that Lu Song didn't say anything but just looked at her, she said again, "Can you beat back the super soldier with one punch?" Judging from her age, the girl is only a high school student. If she were in a martial arts novel, she would be a female disciple who had just come down from the mountains to train. She has no experience in the martial arts world. Not only does she not understand dirty jokes, but she also revealed her true identity so quickly. "Speak up." Seeing that Lu Song didn't say anything, but just looked at her strangely, the girl showed a little anger and pretended to throw the ID card far away. This joke couldn't be made. If it fell into the canal, she would have to get a new ID card. Lu Song knew that although the Brotherhood of Mutants was a loose organization, it was high profile and its members never concealed their identities. He had not seen the girl in any photos of their previous activities, so he could be roughly sure that she was not a member of the Brotherhood. But what was her origin? For a girl of this age, there was no other way except to coax her, so Lu Song had to give in. "Don't be excited. Can you calm down and return my wallet first? We can discuss it. There is traffic behind you. It's too dangerous, little sister." The girl rolled her eyes, straightened her waist, and fell straight down from above. Lu Song was still hesitating whether to catch it, but the other party had already landed easily, and spoke in a tone full of indifference. "I have been in the United States for so many years and I have come this way. It's not dangerous. My name is Jubilation Li, and my Chinese name is Li Qianhuang." Pronounced Lai Shunli. This name is really not ordinary at all. I, Lu Song, have to admit defeat. Lu Song thought so in his heart, and said hypocritically, "Oh Li Qianhuang, what a good name. By the way, how do you know what happened that night?" Li Qianhuang produced several balls from between her fingers, each of which was the size of a ping-pong ball. She threw them on the ground, stepped on them with her shoes, and assembled them into a pair of roller skates. "Because I was there that night, and the saber-toothed tiger couldn't beat the super soldier, but he was my client after all, so I helped him," she said, and slowly skated towards Lu Song on her roller skates. "But later the super soldier went to chase you, and was knocked back by your punch. Are you a mutant too?" "Oh, I'm just naturally strong, that's all," Lu Song said casually. "You're a member of the Brotherhood, right? You want to invite me to join. Who told you I'm from the Brotherhood?" Li Qianhuang tapped his feet lightly, stopped in front of Lu Song, and threw his wallet and ID card to Lu Song. "I have connections and can bring people to China. The Brotherhood hired me to bring the saber-toothed tigers over." "Shit, even though you're not a member of the fraternity, you've caused enough trouble. and both the special group office and Ding Lu have noticed you. Do you know why saber-toothed tiger came to China? Lu Zong continued to probe. If this girl was really an accomplice of the fraternity, then he was still not sure whether to take action against such a high school girl. It's not allowed to investigate the privacy of customers. Li Qianhuan shook his head to indicate that he didn't know, and spread his hands again, sighing, but it should be a bad thing. Not long after I came to China this time, my ship was seized. It has never happened before. Now China's account has also been frozen. I wish I didn't help them with such trouble. You dare to take on the work of the Brotherhood, which is almost equivalent to a terrorist organization. I really don't know whether to say you are brave or stupid. I happened to meet you today and thought you were a fellow mutant, so I decided to get in touch with you. Since you are not, forget it. Alas, what a boring country. I should have found a way to go back to the United States earlier. From what Li Qianhuan said, he was ready to leave. Because of the biome pattern, Lu Zong could tell whether someone was lying or not just by looking at them. The girl's words were so real that Lu Zong was a little bit unconvinced. The two of them said everything when they first met. How did such a real girl survive on the streets of the United States? However, he had no ill feelings towards the girl. If the special group office did not know her true identity, he would just pretend not to know. Oh, by the way. She took a few steps and turned back to Lu Zong and said, "Why are you so poor? This is unbearable." Lu Zong immediately retorted, "No matter how poor I am better than you sleeping in the park. Do you have money now? You said I am poor. Do you want me to treat you to a meal?" "Forget it, Big Daddy. I've seen too many people like you in America." The girl had a joking look on her face. She didn't respond to Lu Zhang's words. She kicked her legs lightly and left on her roller skates. The girl's laughter and scolding could be heard from a distance. "If I hadn't met you today, I would have made a lot of money with my acrobatics. You owe me. It's good that the city management didn't arrest you. They think I'm a Lolita lover who doesn't know how to appreciate kindness." Lu Zong shouted to Li Qianhuan's back. The Brotherhood came to Qiantang with bad intentions. Don't get involved. Do you understand? I don't know if she heard it. Lu Zong put away his wallet. He no longer had the interest to go to the Science Museum. There was a faint scent of flowers in the air. He took a deep breath and looked around. He had no intention of appreciating the scenery when he came. It turned out that the canal park was already a sea of flowers. The northern suburbs of Qiantang City used to be a half-mountain town, but now it has been changed to a half-mountain area. This place was a heavy industrial concentration area in the early days of reform and opening up, and it is still full of factories in the 21st century. There are relatively few residential areas in areas where factories are concentrated, so at 4 a.m., there is no one on the road. 3 explosion-proof vehicles modified from Ford F-550s are speeding on the road. This type of military vehicle is painted dark green as a whole. It is very rare and is not a regular configuration of the troops. The body has been specially strengthened and is difficult to be destroyed from both the outside and the inside. The armor is enough to withstand the close-range bombardment of individual rockets. This type of vehicle is only used to transport superpowered criminals. Ding Lu can see the scenery outside the window through the gaps in the reinforced steel bars. Different from the bright lights and feasting in the center of Qiantang City, this place is quiet and simple, with traces of industry everywhere. The main tone is gray, which is very similar to cities in the Midwest. This is how Pencheng is in Ding Lu's memory, which makes him feel a wonderful sense of intimacy. After entering Faon, Ding Lu has been carrying out important tasks and has not returned home for vacation for several years. He only has letters from his sister. It is only through these letters filled with family matters and longing that he knows about the rapid changes in his hometown. Being away from home and defending the country is the bounden duty of a soldier. Although he has given up his small family, at least he has his sister. Although his parents are old, they are in good health, which can be regarded as some comfort for himself who cannot fulfill his filial piety. When thinking of his family, Ding Lu thought of Lu Song. This chanting youth of the same age as him had been alone for many years and had no chance to have a family. Director Zhou said that he had used many connections to find out the reason for his parents' disappearance but could not find out. The first time he met Lu Song was on the night of the first hunt for the saber-toothed tiger. Ding Lu always had a sense of déjà vu about him. This man had huge energy in his body. He still remembered the power of the punch he threw when he turned around. Ding Lu had not been beaten back from the front for many years. Such a top master in the country and even the world seemed to live the most ordinary life. No one would believe it. Ding Lu deliberately increased the chances of contact with Lu Song, and then found out speechlessly that this person actually knew nothing about the use of strength, and had learned a lot of fancy moves in the training class. In the words of Ding Lu's hometown, he was begging for food while sitting on a gold mountain. After so many contacts, Ding Lu learned that Lu Song was actually a foolish young man, with wild and unrealistic ideas, and a somewhat impulsive and erratic personality. Fortunately, he had a correct outlook on life, compassion and a sense of justice, and in some ways he looked like his cousin. Could that strange sense of familiarity come from missing him? His memory went back to that day long ago, when the burning flames illuminated half of the sky. The enemy was firing crazily, and the house holding the hostages suddenly exploded, swallowing him up in an instant. The enemy leader fled with wild laughter, and he lost his mind and killed everyone. Ding Lu clenched his fists unconsciously. That hideous face was deeply engraved in his mind, and he didn't want to forget it for a moment. He swore that no matter where he was in this life, he would catch him and end his life with his own hands, even if he would be sent to a military court and ruin his future. The knocking sound from the cab brought him back to reality, which meant that the destination was about to be reached. Ding Lu looked around, and his teammates, these comrades who had been with him day and night for many years, all looked at him with trust in their eyes. The martyrs had sacrificed their lives for the country, and those who survived should fight bravely. Ding Lu was a man of strong mind. He took a few deep breaths, and then he got rid of all distractions and adjusted his body functions to the best state. The old site of the steel plant is looming in the morning mist. This is a testament to the prosperity of Qiantang's heavy industry. The huge blast furnace and majestic condensing tower show the glory of this place in the 1980s and 1990s. But now, there are only mountains of garbage, discarded scrapped machinery and dilapidated factory buildings. Since the steel plant moved, this place has been abandoned. Because the property rights issue has not been resolved, it has not been demolished. This place has long been a paradise for weeds and insects, and now it has become a hiding place for saber-toothed tigers. After receiving the news of saber-tooth hiding place, the National Security Bureau immediately held an emergency meeting, contacted the Public Security Bureau and the station troops, and requested the Flying Dragon Special Operations Brigade to assist in the capture. This was the purpose of Ding Lu's coming here. They all knew the information about Sabertooth, a mutant with a mutated body, with great strength, and a pair of huge claws that could tear apart a car. As the #1 thug of the Brotherhood of Mutants, he has always been a notorious murderer in the United States. But this ruthless man is not a man without courage or strategy, otherwise the Brotherhood would not have sent him to China first this time. Ding Lu had to admit that capturing the saber-toothed tiger was very difficult and dangerous. They were equipped with a powerful tranquilizer gun for this mission. First, this domestic weapon has been used many times to deal with superpowers with significant results. Second, the tranquilizer gun is different from other firearms. It has low firing noise and good concealment, so the gunshot will not be heard by the public. After all, in most parts of China, directly shooting will make headlines. A day ago, armed police officers and soldiers deployed personnel near the Hangzhou iron and steel plant, controlled the commanding heights, and had people watching several major traffic routes. So when Ding Lu's troops arrived at the destination, they quickly contacted their armed police comrades and learned the latest movements of the saber-toothed tiger. When he learned that the target person had not shown up since returning to the hiding place yesterday, Ding Lu decided to implement the capture plan immediately. He would sneak in with a few good players. If he could subdue the opponent directly, it would be the best. If not, he would be driven out from the designated direction, and then the team members ambushed outside would concentrate their firepower to shoot. The effect of a powerful anesthetic bullet is enough to make an adult elephant lose its ability to move. No matter how abnormal the saber-toothed tiger's body is, it will be difficult to fly after being shot a few times. Lu Zong on the other side was not in a good mood at this time. This bad mood had lasted for a whole night. The reason was that the company arranged for him to attend a meeting today. This kind of meeting organized by the superior holding group never had any substantive content. The leaders did not want to waste this time, so they arranged for a small employee like him to go. The meeting place is Tianxiling. Why choose a landfill? Even if it is a green industrial park, it won't smell bad, but it is really far away. If you go north, you will almost be out of Qiantang. Lu Zong is really impressed by these leaders. Don't they consider the feelings of the poor people who don't have cars? In order to catch the 9 o'clock meeting, Lu Zong set off before dawn. Fortunately, there were not many people on the early bus. Facing the sunshine along the way, his mood became a little brighter. After entering the mid-mountain area, the road became narrower and the traffic slowed down. The bus stopped and started along the way. Lu Zong practiced until midnight last night and got up too early today. At this time, he felt like he was in a big cradle and dozed off comfortably. He just fell asleep when he heard someone screaming on the bus. Before he woke up, he heard a loud bang. The bus was hit hard by something and the front windshield shattered. Everyone on the bus was thrown into the air by this huge force. Lu Zong first smashed the window glass with his head, and then flew sideways and hit the handrail, twisting the entire steel pipe. If it were an ordinary person, he would probably be useless. Even if Lu Zong had internal force to protect his body, he almost died from the pain. The car was full of broken glass and iron pieces. The injured passengers were wailing in pain. People were pushing and screaming at each other. Lu Zong stood up with the help of a chair. He felt dizzy and his ears were buzzing. He couldn't hear anything clearly. All the standing people were squeezing towards the back seat of the car. Lu Zong was pushed to the window by the crazy crowd. He could see the tragic situation in the front of the car through the gap. The front windshield of the bus was completely shattered, and a large hole was torn where the driver's cab was. Several passengers were seriously injured and fell to the ground, while the others had already fled to the back of the bus. Lu Zong saw a foreigner and a soldier fighting in the car. He never expected to meet Ding Lu here. This professional soldier, who never showed his emotions, now had his eyes wide open and his moves were as swift as a rainstorm. Obviously, he was really angry. The foreigner was tall and strong as a brown bear, and his hands, which were much larger than those of ordinary people, were like the claws of a beast, easily scratching cracks on the car. The foreigner was hit hard in the ribs by Ding Lu, and he roared in pain. He stretched out his hands to break the chair on the car, lifted it up and smashed it at Ding Lu. Ding Lu easily dodged it, and then kicked the foreigner in the waist with a whip kick, causing him to stagger. A normal person would be almost killed by Ding Lu's attack, but this foreigner's physical strength was surprisingly high. After being beaten by Ding Lu, he not only did not lose his mobility, but was aroused to be ferocious. Liu Zong observed for a few minutes. The foreigner attacked with great force, completely ignoring the lives of the wounded in the car, and often used the wounded as a shield. As for Ding Lu, he was afraid to use his full strength. From then on, Liu Zong did not hesitate, kicked the car window, ordered several young people who were not injured to organize everyone to jump out of the car and escape, and rushed towards the foreigner. Ding Lu had already spotted Liu Zong, but the battle was so intense that he couldn't be distracted. Seeing Liu Zong coming to help, he quickly reminded him loudly. He knew that Liu Zhang's skills were not outstanding, and if he encountered a ruthless saber-toothed tiger, he might get hurt if he wasn't careful. As expected, the saber-toothed tiger had a lot of combat experience, and he could tell at a glance that this man was just a show-off. While he was fighting with Ding Lu, he waited for Liu Zong to get close, and kicked him in the chest. Liu Zong was kicked away at twice the speed of before, and he stopped after smashing 2 rows of chairs. Just when the saber-toothed tiger thought that this man was dead, Liu Zong stood up with the help of the wall, covered his chest and took a few breaths, and then rushed towards him again. His kick to the chest was extremely powerful. If it had been kicked on an ordinary person, his sternum would have been broken and he would have died. However, this skinny young Chinese man was fine. This was a great shame for the saber-toothed tiger, who killed people without blinking an eye. He jumped back a step, dodging Ding Lu's side kick, and yelled, "You chink, die," turning around and stretching out his claws to grab Liu Zong. "You son of a bitch, do you think I don't understand?" Liu Zong was hit hard and was about to settle the score with him. Now, when he heard the foreigner calling him a derogatory name, he became even more angry. The internal force in his meridians gathered in his right arm. The feeling of that night came again. Saber-toothed tiger still didn't take the kid in front of him seriously enough. He was ready to hold the opponent's fist and crush it. Unexpectedly, the power of this punch was completely beyond his imagination, and the object of the metacarpal bone crushing became himself. Liu Zhang's fist hit the saber-toothed tiger's face heavily, and the huge force was transmitted to the brain through the skull. The saber-toothed tiger only felt a sizzle in his ears, and his eyes were instantly blank. Ding Lu seized the opportunity, turned his palm into a knife, and slashed the back of his head fiercely. The giant finally lost all consciousness, shook his body twice, and fell to the ground. Ding Lu took the enhanced anesthetic injection from his belt and injected it into the saber-toothed tiger's carotid artery. He then used the military's special restraint rope to tie his hands and feet behind his back. After doing all this, he sat on the ground exhausted. Liu Zong only felt the pain all over his body now. He tilted his body and fell down next to Ding Lu. After the battle, both of them were exhausted. "Why is it that every time I see you, you are either fighting or on your way to fight?" Liu Zong asked Ding Lu. "I wonder why you are either obstructing me from performing my duties or on your way to obstructing me from performing my duties." Ding Lu is also a young man, and he is not afraid of bickering. "Damn, what an ungrateful bastard!" Liu Zong wiped the blood from his face and wiped it on Ding Lu's uniform. "You'd be in trouble without me today. This guy is obviously going to threaten you with all the passengers in the car. Oh, this should be a saber-toothed tiger. Damn, I finally caught this guy." The sirens outside were blaring. Someone must have called the police. The ambulance arrived at the scene at about the same time. Ding Lu sent a location with his tactical watch, and soon an explosion-proof vehicle also arrived. If you look from the air, you can see that the traffic on this road has been completely cut off. The police, medical staff, enthusiastic people who rescued the wounded, onlookers, and vehicles of all sizes have blocked the accident scene. The central figures of this incident, Ding Lu and Lu Zong dragged the unconscious saber-toothed tiger and quickly left in a military vehicle. Lu Zong sat diagonally on the bed, with a bandage wrapped around his chest. 2 nurses were stitching his scalp. This operation required great care and precision, so even though he was gasping in pain, he could only sit still and not move. Familiar ward, familiar doctor. Fu Shenzhou's 2 funny whiskers were hard to forget. There were 2 more people in the ward. Zhou Kai still had a harmless smile on his face, sitting on the sofa next to him, pretending to be a kind old man, while Ding Lu leaned against the door to act cool. Lu Song was now worried that the nurse standing on the right would sew his wound crookedly because she kept stealing glances at Ding Lu. Fortunately, it was all groundless worry. 10 minutes later, the 2 nurses cleaned the wound, warned Lu Song how to avoid inflammation, and then left. When there were no outsiders in the room, Zhou Kai turned on the TV. The news channel was broadcasting the car accident this morning. According to witnesses in nearby vehicles, a soldier was chasing a foreign man on the road. The man hit the accident bus while crossing the road. He tore the front of the bus with his bare hands and entered the bus. Then the soldier entered through the crack. Because there is no surveillance on this section of the road and the witnesses did not have time to take photos or videos, relevant video materials cannot be provided for the time being. However, the passengers on the bus took some pictures. Next, let's take a look at the videos provided by the passengers on the bus. The TV screen switched to a video shot on a mobile phone. Although the picture was shaking badly and a lot of noise was recorded at the scene of Ding Lu fighting the saber-toothed tiger could still be clearly seen in the video. Then Lu Zong, who was very close to the cameraman, kicked the double-air tempered glass to pieces with one kick and yelled at everyone to jump out of the car and run away. The first video ended here. In the second video, the 3 of them were fighting. Lu Zong was kicked several meters away, smashing the chairs and other hard objects in the car but was unharmed. He then punched the saber-toothed tiger in the face with a fierce punch. The most striking thing was that the tattoo hidden under the shirt suddenly burst into a strong red light. This could not be explained as a normal phenomenon. The video continued until Ding Lu took out the anesthetic needle. From the videos provided by the 2 passengers on the bus, this should be a man-made traffic accident caused by a fight between people with superpowers. Previously, nearby residents revealed that there were a large number of armed police and troops near the Qin steel plant this morning. The accident site is less than 2 kilometers away from the old site of the plant. We have reason to believe that the 2 incidents may have a certain connection. The accident caused serious injuries to the bus driver and 3 passengers, and several passengers were slightly injured. According to statistics, the number of registered superpowers has increased year by year in the past 3 years, and superpower behaviors have been discovered in various parts of the country, which has caused some people to worry. So, is this incident because the military is chasing criminals, or is it just a private fight between superpowers? The spokesperson of the Provincial State Security Department said that they will intervene in the investigation. Lu Song couldn't help but complain. How can this be called a private fight? We risked our lives to protect the safety of the people, and they are still making sarcastic remarks. Stupid media. But when he heard that 4 people were seriously injured and many were slightly injured, he stole a glance at Ding Lu and saw that his cold face was now so gloomy that water could drip from it. After the TV station started broadcasting other news, Zhou Kai turned off the TV. No one spoke. Fu Shenzhou fiddled with the computer, looking as if it had nothing to do with him. Lu Zong and Ding Lu didn't know what to say, and the atmosphere in the room was a little gloomy. It was Zhou Kai who broke the silence first. No matter how bad the process was, at least we caught the saber-toothed tiger. Of course, we wanted to keep a low profile, but now everyone in the city knows about it, and your special abilities have also been exposed. Ding Lu is still okay. He turned his head to look at Ding Lu, who turned his head away. The military circle is relatively small, and the military's confidentiality wall has always been in place. Even if someone wants to investigate, they have no way to start. What about you, Xiao Lu? Zhou Kai adjusted his sitting posture slightly and tried to speak in a relaxed tone. According to the ratings, more than half of the Chen people have seen your video now. What are your plans next? Liu Zhen's concept of superpowers is different from a few months ago. At that time, he always tried his best to hide the fact that he was not an ordinary person, fearing that others would look at him strangely. However, since he started dealing with Ding Lu and the Special Group Office of the National Security Bureau, he expected that sooner or later his identity would be exposed. Now he has come to terms with it. If it is exposed, it is exposed. I am alone. What impact does your vision have on me? Resign first. The people in the company will definitely recognize me. Zhou Kai must have dealt with this kind of thing before, so he said, our people can help you deal with the resignation. If you want to join the National Security Bureau as a superpower, we will arrange a new job for you. If you want to continue to hide your identity and live an ordinary life, we can also help you apply for a new identity. When this incident is no longer in the public eye, you can change your appearance and appear in another city. Basically, you will not be recognized. Liu Song was silent for a long time. Zhou Kai thought he was thinking about where he wanted to live, but then he heard Liu Song say in a deep voice, now it's so difficult to deal with just a saber-toothed tiger. What should we do if the Brotherhood comes? He paused, took a deep breath, and made a decision. I shouldn't have lived an ordinary life a long time ago. Since fate has given me special abilities, I shouldn't hide them anymore. He raised his head and looked at Zhou Kai with unwillingness in his tone. I don't want to say any empty words about protecting the world. I just want to protect the people around me from being harmed by these villains. Director Zhou, I want to receive training. I want to become stronger. Superpowers can manifest in many strange ways, and if you want to become stronger, you can only rely on your own understanding. Zhou Kai didn't know how to answer this question, so he looked to Ding Lu, who is also an inheritor of ancient martial arts, for help. But Ding Lu had no choice. The two learned different martial arts, and Liu Song himself couldn't explain what his martial arts were like. How could he help? Besides, he couldn't bring ordinary people to the heavily guarded Special Forces camp. The patrol team was not a pushover. Just when the two were silent, someone spoke up. I do know someone who can help you. Fu Shenzhou pushed the desk and stood up, a gleam of light flashing in his slightly narrowed eyes. His name is